Hi, and welcome to the Schoology Gradebook Advanced Training. This is Sandra, and I'm going to take you through one of my demonstration courses that I have on Schoology to show you several advanced features in Gradebook to save you time and to make it much easier for you to use. Now, I'm going to go down into Gradebook. And one of the most important things to start off with is the grading criteria. So we'll go to Grade Setup. You can see that I have established the grading criteria as is reflected in my syllabus. Now, this is checked here for weight categories. If it was unchecked, you would not see these. As you add categories like participation and assignments in your gradebook, make sure that you check this box because by default, these will be at 100. And so you'll have to go in and set them up according to your syllabus grading policy. All right, let's go into the gradebook itself. A lot of people ask me if you don't see your grades here, it's because it might not be set to the current term. Like right now it's December, so we're between terms, and so I don't have one. So basically that's one way to, especially with the courses that have already passed, you can go back and just set it like if you had something from fall and you want to go see the courses gradebook again, then you would just select that in your drop down here. And that is for the terms. All right. Some of you would like to just add a column, and that's with this plus sign here if you want to add something. And this would be a grade that you need to add to Schoology that is not an assignment or a test. As you add those, then they're collected in the Schoology Gradebook, and you wouldn't need to create a column because it creates one for you as you add these different assignments, tests, and discussions. But if you just want to add a grade column, you would go in and of course you would have to change the category as well. But let's say you were going to give them a special journal or something like that, and I'm going to put this into participation, and I would just create. Now, you might say, where did that go? It is right here, but if you don't see it, then you hit expand, is this toggle full screen, and I'll click that back. It just removes this area, so it gives you more space to view. So here is journal, and by default it's 100 points. Now if it wasn't 100 points, you just go, there you go, and change this. And that's another reason that you really need to go through here, and if there's like if you add a due date, then it will show up on the students' calendars and have the points. By default here it would be 100, so you need to make sure that that's what you wanted to do. All right, for another item over here, and these three, I'll call them ellipses, the dots here, you can do bulk edit, printing reports, export, and import. So if you have been using Schoology as a web enhancement to your face-to-face classes, and you've been keeping your grades in an Excel file, you can go and import them in this way. Let me go back. As well as if you've been keeping your grades in here, then you can go and export them into an Excel file as well. The top one here is really a keen aspect of Schoology Gradebook, bulk edit. This is opening all of my assignments and discussions and quizzes, the different categories, the points, the factor, if it's like just ×1 or ×2, for if you want to have something that is double weight. It shows if I have a rubric, the due dates, and look, all of these don't have due dates. So that would mean that here I can fix them and then save changes. And also the term, this would say, fall 2018 as you went through these. So this is a very nice thing to check all of your assignments at once. For example, if something's not showing or something's amiss in your gradebook, go to bulk edit. I'm going to go back to show you where that was located under this vertical ellipses, bulk edit. All right, now in the grade setup, you may not have noticed, but over here is copy settings. This is where you would go if you are finished with your course, but you want to reuse your gradebook. You don't want to have to keep redoing it each year. So go to copy settings, and it lets you pick and choose which items, and then you would select the course that you wanted to put it in. Now, I'm not teaching any, so they're not populating here, but you would see, maybe if you were teaching Theology 101 in spring, and you would click that and then copy it over. It's important to copy your gradebook settings from grade setup before you copy the course material, because that lays a foundation in it on how your different assignments and quizzes are supposed to operate. Remember, the math will be the operation for your the formulas for how you will grade the different assignments. Next, I'm going to show you right here. So I'm in grade setup. See this little notebook up here? Did you know that you can actually just jump from section to section? So I'm in this critical reading one right now. Let's say I want to go to accessibility and do my grading there next. I can jump from gradebook to gradebook. So I'm still in gradebook, but in this one. So that's from going here. I'll go ahead and go into like theology, demonstration site I've done, and I'm in their gradebook as well. All right, let me get back to the course I was showing you. Now, down here you have analytics. Now this is on the left-hand side. These are where you can find the user analytics. And you can see how a student has logged in to the overall course, but also at the assignment level. You can see how many times they viewed different things, their discussions. Now this is not showing many things because I just have demo students in here as well. It will also show how many clicks people have overall have clicked on. Now if you wanted to look at, here's me, let's see, per student, then you would click on that person's name. Oh, it sent me to this student. Anyway, this is actually Dwight, and we have each other in our as a demonstration students. Then you would go and see, let's see, has he taken the quiz, and it would show when they logged in, the beginning, the end, how many times they've done it, and this is important to make sure that there's any kind of concern or doubt about what's going on. And so you can go through. Let me go back to the user, and it's not very straightforward. You may not have realized it because it's not hyperlinked, that if you select that person, let's see if I get sand. Okay, so you can go through the different, let me drop down, the different assignments that you have, but also here, if you this drop down would go through all your students. So that's one way of using the user analytics in your course. All right, and then next we want to talk about accommodations. So I've definitely am here to support you in that. Let's see, I have a quiz. All right, in test 2 we have a quiz, and under settings, the best idea to do when you want to make an accommodation, say extra time, you go to this settings wheel and you save it to your resources. When you save it to your resources, it will be there, and it's a good practice anyway. You can always bring it back into a course. But when you bring it back into the course, you will save it as with a new name and call it, test 2 with accommodations. So when it goes into your course, when you bring that one in, I'm going to edit here. Then you would, for editing your test, of course you want to have the instructions for your test. Here is this option down here is to assign to the individual. Now when I click that, assign to, like if I know that one of my students' name is Sand, you just start typing and then you can pick that student's name in there and you can assign it to them. Now I'm going to cancel out of here and go back to the test to make a good point. You do not want to give a test and then reassign that, give a test to everyone and then reassign that same test to an individual, because it will disappear all the scores. They're still there, thank goodness. You have to go back and grab them, but you just don't want to mess that up for your students. And I'm not sure they'll always be able to grab them, but you want to just make a new test. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to save it to resources. It says home and no folder. I actually have a folder for critical reading. And then I would go and just below it, go and grab it from resources in my critical reading folder. It's usually at the bottom whenever you add something to it. Import it. And then just, since you have a second one, I'm going to go ahead and edit it. Test 2 with accommodations. And this will help the learner know that you have provided the accommodations. In fact, only that student would see it when you assign it to the individual. Let me go ahead and put Sand in here. And when you make the actual test, when you go into the actual course, it's the same test that you had, but now you can go into settings and provide the extra time. Now this has no time limit, but you go in if it was a time test. Alright, so next I wanted to show you the threaded discussion. Pointed here, discussion for cognitive domains. You're able to create rubrics within Schoology in the gradebook. So what's nice is they will show here, instead of the student having to maybe reference back to your syllabus or some other documentation, they will be able to see the rubric for the criteria and grading scale right in where they do their discussions. So when I go to edit this, you can see that here, if you click on here, that brings up the rubric and you can edit it. Now if you've already used it before, like I have here, it's it might send you a warning and say, oh, make sure that you haven't gonna lose some scores or something like that. But you can also build them from scratch or reuse them. Like this threaded discussion, I can bring it in at this rubric for a threaded discussion, I can bring it in each time. And the grading of it is really nice. I'll show you that in the gradebook. Here's the threaded discussion for the next unit. Edit. It has by default went to not enabled, so I'm going to enable grading. So once you enable grading, it will say participation, which is right, and you can have numeric, or you can make create new rubric, and here I'm just going to assign the threaded discussion, which is nice to show you how easy it is to reuse. Alright, now within Gradebook, and grade setup, you have this hyperlink. By default, it shows the scales for grading. If you click on the rubrics, you would probably have, you might not have any, and you can just add. Here you can see my threaded discussion for assignment and a media rubric. Here you would just add a rubric. Now, you give it a title, and you can see basically you hover over these. If you want to remove a whole row, you can select here. Usually you want to add criteria. Now, one of the things I've been telling instructors during training is that this is by default not a very good rubric. You're not supposed to have good and satisfactory, as there's no real distinction between those. So I've been telling everybody just to X out the good. Satisfactory is a better term here. Now you would have to go through and change the numbers. See how I'm just hovering over these, and you can change them. You add your titles and add description. Now, maybe departmentally, you want to talk about rubrics that you want to do together, like ComArts has done, or you can use some great resources like rubistar.com, where there's rubrics made by educators worldwide, and they host them on that site. I can provide you the link for that if you want. All right. Anyway, I'm going to cancel out of here. But this is a great way to go in and see yours, and then as you use them, like this threaded discussion one, I got it from best practices, and so I actually have shared it. I've saved it to resources, and this is something that I could share with you, or as you make yours, you can consider sharing with your colleagues. All right, and the last thing I was going to show you is in your gradebook. So we'll start there. If you would like to have, oh, I did want to show you how to grade it. I forgot for the rubrics one more thing. I was going to show you how to grade it in Gradebook. I'll just show you again. Now, see how it doesn't show up until I hover over it. Like Journal doesn't have one, but this one does have a rubric. I would just click there, and I can go through and grade these. Let's say they're just satisfactory. The other thing that you see happening over here is a comment box. Oops, I'm realizing this is... Let me move this over here. Here's where I put in the points, and then the comment box is showing up here. And this is where at the criterion level, you can tell them maybe for comprehension that they, needed to add something, which is a nice thing. And then you would save, and it'll give their point there. You can also, overall, in your gradebook, give comments here, and wait until they're ready to, you want to display to student when, after you've finished grading all of your class. All right, now I'll show you the last thing, is in your grade setup. I get this question periodically about how to drop the lowest grades. When you're setting up your categories for grading, you can do it initially when you add them, or at any time you can click on the category and edit. Here, total points, drop lowest grade. This is where you can say you want to drop the first or second lowest grade, and then you would save changes. So, I hope that was helpful. And we covered in 20 minutes what it usually takes about 45 minutes to cover in a training.